Welcome to the Rusted Garden Homestead. In today's episode of Garden Ramblings, I'm going to do a lot of harvesting. So I'll show you stuff I'm pulling out. At the end of the video, I'll do a shot of a table with everything on there. It's really a day for me to be pulling out potatoes, a lot of the cool crops. Things have been doing really well. In the last couple of days, we've had rain, weeds are starting to come in, but the garden is doing what it's supposed to do. I want to start out with showing you my rhubarb plant. It took me almost 4 years to get one that established. I could probably harvest some of that, but I'm going to let it grow. I want this whole root system to set up. I want the rhubarb to come back year after year. So don't be discouraged. It may take you a while to kind of, in quotes, master a certain plant. I had trouble with radishes over the years, and rhubarb is finally established. There was another one right next to it. It died out. This is kind of a mix. This is a raised bed. I've got leeks growing, grapes, rhubarb, and this is an apple tree. So you can combine, outside your garden, instead of just, flowers or ornamentals, you can have a garden you can eat that's going to look pretty cool. And I think this will look nice when it's all in with the grapevine, the apple tree, and future rhubarb. Let's move into the main garden. Actually, let's go over to the potatoes because they are ready to be harvested. That was my first wave of potatoes. Well, these are nectarines. Just want to show you that they're doing well. They're naturally dropping. I've removed some, put in those supports, so hopefully I get nectarines. So the potatoes that we're going to are really my first round of potatoes. They went in back, I don't know, maybe March. I will plant them again. I'll be planting red Pontiacs again. They're usually ready in 70 to 90 days. Just a quick look, but this is everything that I take out of the garden during the tour. I'll be talking more about it at the end of the video. As we move across, indeterminate variety potatoes in there, they're starting to die back. When we got all this rain, it got humid, so maybe some disease set in there, but they should be okay. And it wasn't really the best place for them because the tree is shading them out. So next year, we're not going to put potatoes in there. Garlic is ready. I'll probably pull some of that out. Well, let's just pull out this one. Let's see how it looks. So this is a hardneck garlic, and that'll be perfect. It's not going to be cured in time, or it's not going to be cured the right way. You usually want this to sit out 14 days, but you can use it right away. So I'll be using that today when I cook. Let's set this out here. But the hardneck garlic's ready. It's really getting to the point when you see this starting to happen. It's already got all of its scapes. It's ready to be pulled out. Onions are looking good. We can pull out a couple of those. They're not to full size yet, but I want to use some today. We'll take these two. And this is usually how I harvest a lot of things. You don't have to wait till like every onion is to full size. You can use it, as you need it throughout whatever, the days, the seasons, whatever I was going to say. But I don't, wait for everything to mature because then I'm going to end up with like, 60 onions. So I eat them as they're growing over time. This is red Pontiacs. Oh, that's nice. Broken glass. That'll cut your hand. I don't know if there's any in here yet. These aren't quite, well, here's a little one, but that's, at the top of the surface. So I'm going to let these go a little bit longer. They got a little beat up with all the rain too. I want to go over to the Pontiacs. Those were put in a little bit after the group over here. Red Pontiacs, all in this space. Already had some for breakfast. And I like just reaching in and seeing what I'm able to pull out. Different sizes, which is fine. You're going to get smaller ones, you're going to get some larger ones in there. And seriously, this is what I'll do when I need potatoes for a while, but I'll come back, harvest some more of those. But these are perfect size. I'm very happy with that. The potatoes are also going to be here and be ready when my beans start coming in. So we've got the potatoes. More in here. The ones that I just harvested looked like this about, I don't know, 7 to 10 days ago. So I like to give them time once they fall to kind of just finish out. But we could look in here too. These are Yukon Golds. And, they look pretty good too. There's one on the surface that's getting green. You don't really want those. But, oh my goodness. So, perfect. So I have lots of potatoes coming out of my beds. Just prep this for watermelons. Be doing a whole series on watermelons this year. That video is already done if you want to check it out. So let's go into the main garden. And let's go right over to something that I've struggled with a little bit also, along with, you know, getting radishes over the years, growing so that I just didn't get leaves, and then getting the rhubarb. My kohlrabi just kept looking like, I can't even find it now. Anyway, here is a kohlrabi that is ready to be eaten. You can eat the leaves if you want, but you take, let's get this in view, you basically just gently peel this and you can eat this like an apple. But this is a beautiful kohlrabi. Last year I was just getting a stem. I wasn't getting anything on these. They looked more a little bit like this. There's one forming back there. Here's another huge one. Gonna pull that, oop, gonna pull it out a little bit better. So these guys look wonderful. Peel them, slice them up, eat them with salt. You can roast them. A lot of them look like this. So they weren't really forming. They looked more like that. This year, they're doing pretty good. What I found, regular watering got them started a little bit earlier, and these were direct seeded. In the past, I tried transplants. They didn't seem to work. Direct seeding worked really well. I put 2 seeds per hole, thin them down to 1, space them a little bit more, and we end up with some beautiful purple Viennas. More potatoes in there. We're gonna leave those for a bit. The beets look beat up. That's okay. Some kind of pest bothering this. I've been putting down dust, managing it. Beets can get really beat up well. I think these are leaf miners. They can get beat up pretty harshly, and they're still going to produce. So we got beets that are ready to come out. Here's a nice large beet. I love the color of these beets. That's 3. If you let them, you know, grow close together, they may not get as tall. I mean, as big. So take out the larger one. And I'm just looking. Here's a nice sized beet. Let me spin around a little more slowly. That looks great. Some more in here. And I'll be making roasted beets, so I'll get more out of here. So everything is really starting to roll in nicely. Beat up leaves, doesn't matter. Beets are beautiful. Kale, time to harvest it. This is just going to become a mess. There's the white flies. I was just going to say, for white flies, all those little white specks are white flies. Eggs starting to hatch. So I will go through, harvest a whole lot of this, wash it, cook it down, and maybe mix some potatoes and onions into that. And that'll be a great side of greens with whatever I want to eat over the week. You can't let your kales, your collards, your leafy greens, especially if you do get not leaf miners, but if you get white flies. If you get white flies, they're going to show up again, no matter how much you put down, spray-wise, dust-wise. I've kept this under control, but you have to harvest it. Harvesting really controls how those white flies get out of control, basically. So I'll be taking probably 1/3 of what you see here, and I'm going to be cooking it down today. The green beans, not the green beans, the peas are finishing up. These are staying on here. These are arrow peas, I think, till they dry, and then I'm going to replant them for a fall crop. They were absolutely delicious. Cleaning up a lot. I've gotten rid of all the kale that was in there. Wasn't really going to use it. White flies were coming in. There were peas in here, gone. There were peas along here, gone. Took out some more kale. Tomatoes are looking good. These plants were the plants that were struggling. And what I discovered or kind of figured out is I had too much leaf grow in there, leaf compost, and it just doesn't hold moisture enough. It's great for a soil conditioner, so a little bit too much of the leaf grow, it dried out quickly, and the plants did suffer a bit. But they're coming back now. They're nice and green from upping the watering. You can see the tomato vine is moving around. Lots of tomatoes. There's one even starting to turn. These are the first tomatoes I got in. This guy looks okay. It's getting enough sun coming in through here. That is collards, Swiss chard. Been harvesting that, trying to keep up, not letting the insects get to it. Harvesting, again, is one of the best ways you can really manage pests and disease. If you can't harvest it in time, then you're probably growing too much. So figuring out the right balance between number of plants, how much you're going to eat and use, really makes a difference. You end up doing less work. You have less plants and less disease and pest problems, but you still have plenty of produce. So you have to figure that out. Look at all these beautiful sweet peppers. I'm going to leave these on here a little bit longer. These were the peppers that I started probably back late December as prop plants, and I didn't want to get rid of them. So I put them into the gallon pots, put them into my sunken cold frame. Well, like really early, like maybe March, when the frost was still outside. But being in the sunken cold frame, they established beautiful root systems. The frost didn't get in there, and now look at them. You know, June 25th, tons of banana peppers. They're a little bit smaller because they were stunted a little bit in those containers, but now they're taking off, and I have all these peppers. So this is my first round of peppers. Took all the lettuces out of here. Just shot a live classroom for my perk membership with these cucumbers. That's why they have dust on the end. First round of bush cucumbers, they're all going to get pruned really well underneath. You just don't need leaves that aren't being hit by the sun. So the outer leaves are shading out leaves below there, and they're only just going to be a place for pests and disease to show up. So I'm going to be pruning out, I'll be doing a future video on it, pruning out all the leaves that are under the outer leaves, which means these guys right there, 1, 2, 3, getting sun. Everything below it not getting sun, those leaves are going to get removed. Also have these mixed in nicely with dill, garlic, lavender, trying to use scents of plants to repel the cucumber beetle. But I've also put dust down, a little bit of dust, outer leaves away from the flowers. You do not need to throw dust down everywhere. That's going to kill every insect, you know, that flies by. Just use it in a targeted way. This looks like a mess, but these are still delicious. These are radish pods, and radishes now would be all woody tasting, spicy, you know, not good, but these pods are just really crunchy, sweet, mild radish taste, no spice to it. So I am still harvesting these, and this is a whole second round. I mean, the flowers just keep coming. These flowers turn into these little tiny, you know, pods, and then the pods grow into something like this. And if you pick them when they're still soft, before they get a little bit thicker, a little more papery, like this, you can't chew. But you get them like this, use them however you want. Use them in salads, use them in stir fries. First round of basil is looking good. I've been pinching back the flowers, but I've also planted seed down there. So that's what I wanted to show you. So the basil that you see here might get beat up, get used, whatever, but this new basil, I'll be able to put shade cloth over this space, and that basil is going to last production wise with good taste, good leaves, all the way into really late August, September. Beans are in, another wave of cucumbers back there. Let's step over, well, let's come over to here. So in here, really my first year of growing parsnips. They still need to grow more. This is all, here, I'm just gonna leave this there, and then it's time for all these turnips to come out. I mean, so many turnips, and I've been making turnip mashed potatoes. Here's another one. This is one that I forgot out here. Look at this guy. Complete success. So I'll be harvesting a lot of these larger turnips, and I'm going to be making turnip mashed potatoes. Can use the potatoes that I just got from the garden. Can use the turnips that I'm getting now. 50% turnip, 50% potato. Makes a wonderful mashed turnip potato. Love the wild sage, brings in tons of pollinators. Had more peas in there, they're all gone. Already harvested a squash out of here. And I've been talking about this, but when you see a squash that looks like that, that means it wasn't pollinated. I'm letting that brown out a little bit more for a future video. Super hots are doing well. Those are radishes. More beets in here. This is where I was trying to get to. This was a second round of beets. They're not quite as large, so I'll let these grow for a while, but it's time to really take out the first round of beets that I showed you. No point in letting them grow any longer. They would probably last a little bit, but they can get a little bit woody. Second round of kohlrabi, so I'm taking the other ones out. And notice this is really succession planting. Look, they look good. That I don't want all of this, like if I did all the kohlrabi here, the stuff you saw first, then I'm gonna have like 40 kohlrabis to eat at once, and that's too much. Second round of turnips, they're looking really good. That's why I want to get the other ones out. These are all, I mean, they look great. Succession planting. You plant your seeds. After they germinate, break the surface, about 2 weeks later, you put in another round of the same crop. And this way they don't all mature at the same time. Beans coming up this side. We have beans coming up this side. They self-planted themselves. Before I had 2 acorn squash here, 3 butternut squash. That was too much. I got more butternut squash than I could handle. So 3 plants was too much. I cut it down to 2, and the acorn squash was actually just a pain to really cook and process. So I'm not growing the acorn squash. By growing less plants, 2, but still going to get plenty of butternut squash, I really reduce my workload. I don't have to manage for pests and disease. They're not taking over this entire space as much as they did last year, but I'm still getting plenty of the harvest. And that's what's really important. If you are growing, as I've been alluding to and saying, if you're growing more than you can use, then you're just really setting yourself up for pest and disease problems. And maybe you want to give some away. But if you get beyond that point, why are you growing it? And that's a question you have to ask yourself. I love growing, I love putting stuff in the ground, but I'm really trying to manage the size. This is my celery. I've had trouble learning how to grow celery, like the rhubarb and even radishes in the past. But just look how beautiful it looks. That's pretty much ready to be harvested. Could have give it a little bit more time, but this space seemed to be really good for it. And I might expand it. But I mean, the celery looks beautiful. I use the tops in stir fries, even in salads if they're not too bitter. I don't mind them when they're bitter. I will use them in soups. This guy's a little curled and beat up, not sure what happened, but take a look at these. But I just use this when I want to, and when they get larger, I'll be, pulling out a whole head of celery out of there. And celery is another plant that I struggled with. It wasn't really till last year I got it growing pretty well. This year, even better. I'm going to keep it in this spot, or in here maybe I'll build an extra bed just for the celery. Looks good. This is all asparagus. The red acre cabbages are looking good. The shade cloth is making a big difference. The heads are starting to form. And maybe, I could actually, I've been using the leaves. The heads maybe will be ready in about 2 weeks or something like that. Have some watermelon growing in here, trellising it up the cattle panel. We'll go over to the tomatoes too in a second. 3 watermelon plants in here, and you saw the you saw the first bed with like watermelon just sprouted. Again, succession planting. So these are being grown up this trellis. They won't really support, the fruit. So when the fruit forms, I have to secure it some way. Well, what I'm trying to say is it'll support the vines. If the fruit's just hanging here, the fruit's going to break off. So I have to secure the fruit to the trellis with something like stockings or some sort of netting or something that just gives it support right to the trellis. This way the weight of the fruit as it forms doesn't pull the vine away. But the theory here is I have 3 plants, lots of space, fed well, and they're going to grow out under the apple tree, up the trellis, and we're going to keep them to 3 plants. The cool thing about this is this growth is, I'm serious, like 4 inches a day. With all the rain we had and regular watering, these are just taking off. A couple of cantaloupe in there. The tomato looks good. The yellowing down here is nothing to worry about. This is a currant type tomato, and it's being, trellised right up this deck railing that I made a trellis out of a couple years back. Tomatoes over here, these were the first ones to go in. They are doing really well. They're getting pruned, generally in a pretty good way. I gotta take up some of the leaves from the bottom, but every plant, tomatoes, they're almost ready for top and side dressing. which is basically the same thing. In a garden, it's more organic granular. You know, for lawns and stuff, a top dressing is more soil, like rich soil. These will get some compost too. I mean, they all look really good. And I just want to show you this. This is the sunflower, one of them that just planted itself. I mean, they're just beautiful. And all of these sunflowers I didn't plant. I just let them pop up early spring. They actually handle a frost okay if they come up early. But this is what I call the nature planting of the sunflowers. More tomatoes. Everything's looking really good. When you're looking at your plants, like a lot of times we're geared to feeding and fertilizing more often than we need to. These plants are really green. There's no need to go crazy and keep giving them water-soluble fertilizer. If they're green and looking good, let them go. I mean, these are really, really healthy. That is horseradish in its second year here, and it's going crazy. Lots of water. The leaves are ridiculous, and I have to take off a lot of them. But I'm finding I think they're making, you know, good mulch. I just lay the leaf flat on the soil, and it really kills off any weeds underneath. Swiss chard looks good. This is all cilantro. These are collards. That's the white butterfly that's hanging out in there, laying eggs, you know, doing its thing. Can't do much except stick with your routine of dusts or spray. Cilantro is turning to seed. I will leave it here. Little pollinators love this, love the flowers, and then this will reseed too. All right, where are we at here? Cucumbers, all planted by seed. The tops have been chewed down because I left the gate open and a deer came in here. I got 2 living in my wooded area. They'll be perfectly fine. Succession planting of the cucumbers. Squash that was, oh, I gotta rinse that dust off. No flowers on there, so it's okay. Squash planted by seed. You know, we have right over there. Zucchini number 1 back there. After that was growing for a while, I put in another variety of zucchini right in here. They're both summer squashes. So I don't have 2 plants maturing at the same time. You can only eat so much squash. So if you have 3 plants and you plant them all at the same time, you're gonna have like 6, 8, 10 squash a week. I mean, it's really hard to eat all that. Cantaloupe that reseeded itself from last year. Cleared out this space. Some of these peas are staying for seeds probably. Put in a round of sunflowers here. Some beans back there. Sunflowers back there. If you have rabbit problems, just real quick, these are just dish racks or whatever from thrift stores, and there are some sunflowers coming up. So a rabbit gets in here sometimes. If these were not protected and it found the sunflowers, it would just eat all of them. So this gives them time to develop and really helps prevent damage from birds. Sometimes birds peck your seedlings out of the ground, or in this case, rabbits. This guy was struggling. This is a midnight snack tomato. Extra water soluble fertilizer. It's taking off. Tomatoes are good. These are being pruned to single stem, double stems. Peppers are starting to flower. Still haven't put them anywhere. They may not be able to get into the ground, but I have a hard time throwing stuff away. And you can just see slowly. The tomatoes look good. We're gonna walk through the blackberries. There's some jalapenos in here that I'm using. I will put these into the potatoes that I make, you know, and basically whatever's ready, I'll just cook them in different ways. Blackberries are all rolling in. I've been eating these, had them for breakfast. Blueberries are rolling in. The eggplant are struggling less, giving them water-soluble fertilizer every week because they're just struggling. And I'm keeping the dust on them because the darn flea beetles just keep showing up. If I put a break on them with the dust, they show up within like 2 days. Green stalk towers are doing really well. And I want to announce, if you like the limited version of the Rusted Garden Red, they haven't been produced for 2 years. They're going to be produced again this fall. Subscribe and follow me because I'll give you updates. But I love that color. They are limited edition. They're not going to cost any more. At least I don't think so. I'm pretty sure it's going to be like last time. Same exact price, just a limited color. And you'll be able to get them in the fall. And I might get a couple more. And they're doing really well. This is a determinate variety tomato. Keeping it at the lower end. Still kind of going all over the place. But being at the lower ground level, I can let it kind of spread out here. Peppers look good. Here's a pepper plant. You know, the towers do really well with determinate tomatoes and peppers. Strawberries, everything is starting to come back. My strawberries that all got beat up for whatever reason, I have all these runners coming out. You can see roots right here, and they will just get tucked into the empty pockets, or I'll put them into containers. And this is Japanese beetle. So that's just a signal real quick that the Japanese beetles are around. So I'll have to keep an eye out and maybe dust certain crops because the beetles can devastate them. Just loaded with blackberries. A lot of these will get frozen. I do have people coming out picking blueberries, picking blackberries. I mean, I'm really happy. I love planting. I like watching stuff grow, and I like the harvesting part too. So people always say, what is your favorite part? And it varies all the time, but ultimately I just like watching the garden come to life. Like, if you've been following Garden Ramblings, like here's a nice shot, I think, of just all those blackberries. I just like seeing how stuff comes to life, fills out, and if you've been watching Garden Ramblings, you've seen how this garden has developed over time. Hopefully you guys are having great success. More potatoes. I had peas in there. These are shishitos. This is a really nice, healthy, green-looking shishito there. One over here. It's producing. This is actually ready. And I just grill these, soften them up, add some olive oil. This guy's struggling for whatever reason. Maybe it needs more nutrients because the potato over here is taking some. So this is going to get a water-soluble fertilizer today. These will probably get a splash, but they won't get as much. And this is just a way to eyeball it. Healthy, looks good. I need to stake them up. Struggling a little bit, needs more. Onions along there. These are actually the peppers that you saw were part of this group. These guys in this little container, yellow, not as big. Once you get them into the ground, the root systems take off. When established, the green leafy growth, the canopy really follows, and you just get great growth out of your plants. I'm going to show you this. Whoa, almost tripped. This is a tomato plant that's self-seeded. This is the sunken cold frame where those peppers were sometime in March when the frost and everything was still around, and frost just didn't get into there. So they got to grow the really nice root. Let's try it again. They got to grow the really nice root systems in those containers. Self-seeded, not being watered, not being fed. That's only one plant in there. Actually, it's two. It's one back there and one right here. And look how big they are. You know, so we don't need to overlove and overfeed and over-fertilize and really kind of hover over our plants. They can really find what they need out of the ground. And down at that level, we're past like all the good prep that I've done, and that's just red clay soil. And they're doing really, really well. I'll spin around slowly, kind of get a view. Here are some of the tomatoes that I'm growing in the green stalk. That's a tiny Tim. I mean, look how beautiful that is. I got some up at here, some down there, and then a different variety down there. That might be a patio choice down there. Watering is a key to any vertical tower. Just keep them watered, keep them fed. Let's finish up over here. And again, with that whole idea of how many plants do you want? I don't know how many's in here now. Let's just say 12, and last year maybe I had 18. So I reduced the number of plants in here because a disease did roll in. I was able to manage it, but I couldn't really eat through all the peppers. So I reduced the number, and they look beautiful. I don't know if you remember, but these guys are struggling a little bit because I got them in a little bit too early. But the peppers are forming. These are all bell peppers or related. This guy needs to be staked up, but they're doing well. Sticking with growing peppers in this container, and I am affiliated with Vegega Beds. If you want to check out the video description, this is perfect if you have deer. Deer will come over and use this as a buffet, but this is perfect if you have lots of rabbits. They can't get up here, so you can grow this way. I'm always going to grow my peppers in here. You know, I just freshen up the soil, more compost, etc. And the bell peppers do really well. Got to cut back the muscadines. They were cut back very harshly, as they're supposed to be, but now they're starting to creep over. And maybe we'll just finish up in this section. Blueberries still coming. I've been talking about those. Maybe 15 plants. People are coming to get them. I'm eating them every day. Had them for breakfast along with the potatoes. Ginger looks good. Luckily, birds aren't coming in and taking any of the blueberries. There's a specific species of bird in my area that does enjoy them, but they're just not here right now. Tiny Tims, these are the tiny Tims that were growing indoors. And you can see some issues down in there. Maybe I'll give it a spray or something like that. That really came when we had 3 days of rain and, you know, the diseases set in. But look at all the cherry tomatoes. So these guys grew inside in January in my house. Got a big harvest out of them. Brought them outside after they were kind of spent and beat up. Put them into here. And now I'm getting a second round from the same plants, was my point that I was trying to make. Just a quick look again. A little bit of space here. 15 plants, brambles, 2 fruit trees, really producing nicely. And if I need to, I kind of grew this. Let's see if I can show it. This side, and then behind me, it's a rectangle. So if I have to put up some sort of cage around here because of birds, I will do that. That will protect my blueberries. But this year, so far so good. Lots of production. Thanks so much for watching. Please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com. If you're interested in the vertical towers, please check out the video description. I'm affiliated with Greenstalk. And if you like the metal raised beds, I'm affiliated with Vegega. I highly recommend both companies. But I'm really excited about where the growth is. We're going to finish up here technically. I'm going to say goodbye, but I'm going to show you the harvest at the end of this if you're interested. Thanks so much for watching. Again, please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com. This is pretty much what a standard harvest looks like from mid-June going forward. Granted, there's no tomatoes, pepper, eggplant, green beans, mature onions in here, no melons, etc. So the root crops will get replaced with that, but I also put in more plantings. And again, just want to stress, rotating in the same crop every 2 weeks really makes a difference. So, I mean, they look beautiful. Plenty of turnips, 3 different varieties of beets, a lot of potatoes. Going to make mashed potatoes, garlic mashed potatoes. This is the hardneck garlic, much bigger. That was planted back in the fall. Onions are going to go with the kale. This is a different bunch of kale. I got to still go pick the purple. Those are softneck garlic. They're much smaller, but they were planted in somewhere around maybe later March, but they formed nice heads, so you can plant garlic much later. So I'm going to have garlic, kale, kohlrabi is going to get sliced up, mashed potatoes will go with the turnip mashed potatoes, beets always get roasted. This is a lot, you know, for 2 people, and this is what I really enjoy. I mean, just look how wonderful that is. So you can get a lot of food out of your garden, and I hardly put a dent into the space that, you know, that I pulled this from. So you don't need a big garden like I do. You can have a smaller garden and you can get just beautiful harvests like this throughout the year. And again, thanks for watching, and maybe for, what are we doing? Garden ramblings, I'll do a lot of harvesting and put it at the end of the video just for an extra bit in the video.